It works. Okay. I am a journalist with a serious travel problem. I am so addicted. I have the bug so badly. I love nothing more than just packing my bag and going anywhere all over the world. And over the years, I have been to some of the most eye-opening places. And I'm very, very lucky to experience incredible things. And I've camped with some of the most remote tribes in Africa. Now, it might sound like I'm bragging, but really, I promise you, I am not bragging. I'm just really shocked, and I'm quite surprised. I grew up in the bush in northern New South Wales, so in Gunnedah, and then on a farming property up in Armidale. And when I was a kid, I would get so homesick. Just staying in town at a friend's house, super homesick. And when I was in year 5, our entire class got to go to the Gold Coast, and they went to Wet n Wild and SeaWorld. I stayed at home. I was way too scared. So when I look back now at how that scared little homesick bush girl got to travel all over the world and become an international journalist, there's not really one major moment that changed everything for me. Instead, it was just lots of small and constant movements. I constantly moved forward. Got the photo for you. Now, I was very nervous at my first job in TV. I was in regional New South Wales. I was a journalist. And I thought, I'm just a girl from the bush. What do I know about being a journalist? And I felt the same way when I moved to a bigger city. And then I moved to London and worked for the BBC. And I thought, I'm just a girl from Australia. What do I know about being a journalist? And then I moved to the Middle East, worked for Al Jazeera. And I thought, I'm just a girl who's from Australia, who's worked in London. What do I know about being a journalist? But I kept going. And I'm so glad I did, because as a result, I was able to travel the world and meet very interesting people. And I also learned some very valuable lessons along the way. Now, my first lesson is that there's no such thing as normal. We as humans are also wonderfully different, yet in so many ways, we are exactly the same. Now, there are obviously language barriers and stark cultural differences, but we all have the same desire for health and happiness, and we want the people that we love to be okay, and we just want to get through life the best that we can. And my example is the Suri tribe. Now, the Suri live on the border of Ethiopia and South Sudan in one of the most isolated and treacherous locations on the planet. Now, my husband, he's a journalist as well, and he and I had been working in breakfast television and getting up at crazy hours, and we were quite tired. We thought, okay, we want a break. So we quit our jobs, we packed our bags, and suddenly we were in the depths of Ethiopia. Now, it's a very long and bumpy 3-day journey to get to the Suri tribe from the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. It's 4-wheel drive access only. It's constant flat tires. And for part of the way, we were accompanied by armed guards carrying like big AK-47s in the car with us. But the trip is worth it. The Suri men, as you can see, the boys and the men, they paint their faces with really bright clay. And they do this to sort of try and protect themselves from neighbouring tribes who often try and come in and attack. And they do this to protect their families and also to impress the ladies. And then the women, of the Suri tribe, they wear clay lip plates, as you can see here. And the plates, they're a symbol of beauty, of dedication to their tribe, and also they're a sort of a social status. So the bigger the lip plate, the bigger the dowry that the women can expect when they get married for their family. So a really big lip plate might get the family, 60 cows. A smaller lip plate might get 40 cows. And the way it works is that the girls, by the time they're 16, normally this process is in place. And what happens is a small cut is made just below their lip. The two front teeth are knocked out. And then a small little clay, kind of like a little clay disc, is inserted into the lip. And over time, a bigger plate is put in. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And like a sort of a black Vaseline is applied around the disc to help pop it in. Now, this can be a little confronting, right? And to be honest, when I was there, I wasn't really sure how I was meant to feel and meant to think. But this is where those life lessons kick in, those life lessons that I learned through travel that I was telling you about. So the women are so different to anything that I had ever seen in my entire life, but they were also so similar to most mums that I know. They're very dedicated to their kids. They were constantly getting food for their kids, preparing food and hanging out with the other mums. And it made me realise that we really do have similarities. And the funny thing was, when these women saw me, they thought I was weird. They thought I was so strange. And they were really obsessed with my white skin and freckles and my blonde hair, and they had never seen anything like me at all. So I learnt that it's very important to dare to open our minds, and it's important to dare to think differently. And the theme of today's talk is dare. And these women, every day, they dare to stay alive. They dare to keep their culture alive. They dare to keep their kids alive. And they taught me the importance of opening our mind and daring to think differently. And that is so inspirational. Okay. The second lesson from travel is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's not limited to stereotypes of people that we see in magazines and social media. Now, the Maasai women that you can see here, they ooze confidence and power and beauty, and they know their culture, and they know who they are, and they're so proud of who they are. And we met the Maasai women at Abbotsleigh National Park in Kenya. We met them at sundown, and they live, you can't really see, but just behind, they live right near Mount Kilimanjaro, which is a beautiful, big, mighty mountain in Africa. And there are wild elephants sort of roaming by, and other wild beasts roaming by. It was incredible. And, and the Maasai, they taught me how to do their traditional dancing, like they're jumping and dancing. And as they did this, they had that big, beautiful, like colourful beaded earrings, and they were swinging, and they had big neck discs, and they were swaying, and their bodies were moving. And the Maasai women taught me that it's possible to be very strong, to have a real strength, but also to have a real grace and a real beauty. Now, these women, they know exactly who they are. They know their culture, and they're very proud of both. And you won't find their faces on the front covers of magazines or as social media influencers, but they are among the most beautiful that I've ever seen. Now, we met Mayter. She was in a stilted hut about an hour's paddle, a canoe paddle, along Inle Lake in central Myanmar. And like most Padawang women, she received 10 copper neck discs when she was 8 years old. And the older she got, the more neck discs that were sort of applied. And by the time she was 25, she had 25 neck rings. And similar to the Suri women and their lip plates, I wasn't too sure how I was meant to think. I was like, I don't know. They're beautiful, but is she in pain? So I asked her, and Mayter is now in her 60s, and she said that the rings, they don't hurt. She wasn't forced to wear them. And they didn't help her find a husband. Basically, she wears them because she thinks they make her feel beautiful, and she wants people to know that she's a proud Padawang woman. So Mayter taught me that to know who you are and to be proud of who you are is beautiful. And she also reminded me to open my mind and to dare to think differently. Now, I want to show you the most beautiful and graceful woman I have ever met in my entire life. This is Tor Donna Howe, and she's a Buddhist nun. And I saw her, she was just squatting in the shade at Old Bagan markets, again in Myanmar. And it was a really, really hot day, so she just had that hand towel that you can see over her shaved head, and she was just watching the world go by. She was very content and very happy, a little bit elderly and frail, but very, very, very happy and beautiful. And I asked if I could take her photo, and her whole face just lit up. She's like, yes. So I took the photo, and afterwards, she looked me right in the eye, and she shook my hand, and she said, "May Buddha be with you wherever you may go." And she was so happy. And I know people who have everything they could possibly want, and so much more. They've got everything, and they're so unhappy. Yet these women, they have so few material goods and really, really big life challenges, but they're happier than most people I know. And finally, the third lesson that I have learnt through travel: resilience. It's everything. Life can be so tough, but we are even tougher, and we should never forget who we are. Now, when I had malaria, I was such a sook. Complete sook. I was in Ghana at the time, in West Africa, and I think I got malaria from a pesky mosquito in neighbouring Ivory Coast. And signs that you have malaria include aches and pains and wild dreams and a metallic taste on your tongue. It's as if you've been sucking coins. It's so gross, really disgusting. So I had all these signs, and unlike lots of people, I was lucky enough to be able to go to a hospital. So I went to the hospital and I was moaning, poor me, I've got malaria. My goodness, life is so hard. And I finally saw a nurse, and I said to her, gosh, I have malaria, my goodness. And the nurse looked at me and she said, "Take your medicine and you'll be fine. You are so lucky." And the nurse said, "As I stand here and treat you, I have malaria. I am your nurse, I have malaria, and I'm helping you." And then she said, "Look at all those people out in the waiting room. They all have malaria. Everyone has malaria. You are so lucky. You can go home and you can be treated. You're fine." And she was exactly right. It made me realize how resilient that nurse was, how resilient the people of West Africa and those around me were, how resilient the tribes that I've met really, really are. Now, when I was thinking about what to say in this talk today, I was struggling to kind of work out, trying to get all my ideas together and sort of suss out whether I even had anything that was worth sharing with you. It can be quite scary getting up here and talking. And so I put a few ideas down, And I'm very close to my mum and I value her opinion, so I sent them through to her and I said, I'm just struggling, I don't know what I'm writing. And so Mum had a read, and then she phoned me and she said, sweetheart, what you've written, it's fine, but it just doesn't sound like you. It doesn't sound like what you would normally say. And she was exactly right. I was trying too hard to I don't know what I was trying to say, but I was trying too hard to be something that I wasn't. And I should have just backed to myself and just written from the heart. And she was exactly right. So I think we need to learn to be more vulnerable. This is what I learned anyway. We need to be more vulnerable. We need to back ourselves and believe in ourselves. Now, I have a 17-month-old toddler named Clementine. And toddlers are really, really funny. Like we've watched her learn how to roll over. We've watched her learn how to crawl and then take her first sort of wobbly step and start walking. And toddlers never ever act in fear. They never sort of look at other toddlers and suss out what they're doing and compare themselves to other toddlers. They just do their thing. And they constantly fall over, and bang, they just climb up. They get back up again. They just do their thing. And we probably can't really remember it, but we were once all toddlers too. So like toddlers, and like the people that I've met around the different tribes, we need to back ourselves. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to get up and just keep on going. And don't let me stand here and tell you what to think and what to say. We need to form our own opinions. We need to ask questions and have our own mind. And we need to dare to open our mind and constantly dare to think differently. And like a good journalist, we need to always remember that there are two sides to a story. Thank you.